Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we're checking out a cave shoot 'em up that was developed alongside Dangun Feveron and will be the first project with Junya Inoue at the helm as art director. We're checking out ESP Side, developed by Cave and published by a conjunction of publishers being Atlus, Sega, and Nihon System. This into the arcades in 1998. This would get a port to the Nintendo Switch and PS4 in 2019 by M2 Shot Triggers, and that's the version we'll be looking at today, which features a few extra modes compared to the arcade original. If you follow the channel for a little while, it's no secret that I'm a fan of Cave developed shooters, and finding ones that I hadn't heard of is often a treat since Cave rarely disappoints. Through this vertical shooter, you'll ring in the holidays in a sea of bullets and explosions as you blast everything in sight through each area and try to stack the best scores possible. Before banging on too much further, let's check out the story. It's Christmas Eve, and 'tis the season to band together as three students battle through Tokyo to defeat the infamous Gara Ono, leader of the Yakuza Corporation. Gara is in secret a powerful entity who holds a powerful psychic energy called Esper and has ambitions of domination and turning the city's citizens into clones. Three unlikely companions unite as Yasuke, JB Fifth, and Irori set out on their mission to take down Gar for the holidays through 5 stages of manic bullet hell intensity as you make your way to the final encounter at the Yakuza Fortress. You're the city's last hope, and with your efforts combined, it's up to you to deliver some coal to the Yakuza Corp this holiday season. Gameplay-wise, this follows a similar format to their upcoming title Goange, though instead of its ground-based combat, Esperade takes its action to the skies through 5 increasingly challenging stages. Depending on the character chosen, you'll start on one of 3 possible first stages, with the 4th and 5th stages remaining the same among all characters leading up to the final encounter with Lady Gara. You've got 3 attacks at your disposal, being your normal attack where you maintain normal movement speed, and a heavy concentrated shot where you move slower but deal more damage. You've also got a chargeable screen clearing attack which also doubles as a shield and icon vacuum to grab all those points and power-ups that drop from enemies while you're actively charging. Each character has their own unique fire patterns and special attacks. In the arcade mode plus, a 4th character Alice is also available, who can also be quite lethal in the right hands. The 3 original characters also have varying speeds and base shot strings, all of which can be upgraded numerous times. Once you hit max power, your character becomes a brick house throwing psychic energy hands like E Honda. Enemies come at you in sizable numbers even early on, though once you get to the midpoint of the game, the corporation has called in everyone for overtime, and it's about to get even more hectic. Each character has in-game dialogue and unique endings to each of their campaigns, encouraging repeat plays to see how the story unravels amongst the lot. There's also a fairly robust system of bonus points here, and besides trying to down every enemy in your path, you'll also want to maximize your points per stage by chaining combos and destroying parts of the environment, revealing enemy strongholds. Other ways you'll snag bonuses is by time taken to defeat each stage's mid and main bosses, along with grabbing numerous upgrades that fall while you mow down your aerial ops. Throughout each stage, depending on your performance, you'll receive anywhere from a bronze to a gold rating per section, and these 2 will affect each stage's bonus multiplier. On paper, seems pretty simple, right? Well, with all that in mind about the objective at hand, now throw in walls of bullets and truckloads of enemies on screen at any given moment. The boss encounters will absolutely demolish you here until you can figure out their attacks and the best ways to dodge and defend yourself from them. You can take 3 hits with each bar representing a life, but once those are out, it's game over and you'll have to continue. Continues also reset your score, bringing you back to 0, so if you're going for high scoring runs, you basically have to get as far as you can without continuing or even getting hit at all for gold status ranking. Even the regular enemies and majors can gang up on you, and when things kick off, it will get pretty rowdy, especially towards the end. Luckily, you respawn right where you leave off when using continue. The only real consequence is losing your previous score and ranking. The difficulty swings up gradually, and with various starting points for each character, you can get familiar with the earlier stage layouts and enemy formations. Keep in mind with each character, stage progression scales difficulty accordingly, and by the time any character reaches stage 3, the game has already begun to bring out the heavy artillery to smoke you. Alice has the option of selecting your starting stage in arcade mode plus, and the same rules apply on her runs as well. The last 2 stages are going to clap you up, leading to the final encounter on stage 5, which is a 3-boss gauntlet, all with devastating fire patterns as well as comically long health bars. Stay on the swivel, and knowing your enemy is more or less the key to survival alongside repetition. Esperade Sai also features a few different modes like the arcade plus mode, which adds Alice as an additional character, along with the super easy mode, which dials back the fire patterns a fair bit. This mode is a good means to learn the game and get familiar with the game's mechanics and get a feel for the combat, though even this mode can get a little hectic on the back end. Experienced players will likely clear this mode with no problem, but it's still a great way for novice players to learn the ropes and still get the experience, which is an exciting one regardless of its difficulty. Graphics wise, Esperade Sai carries the same visual DNA as the also excellent disco shoot 'em up Dangun Feveron, which released the same year. While both have similar visual displays with their borders containing information about the areas and enemies, they both use roughly the same art style while applying each differently. Where Dangun Feveron is the baseline space odyssey, Esperade is grounded planetside with you traversing Tokyo's winter wonderland as you battle the Yakuza Corp. The backgrounds are beautifully drawn here, and a lot of the environment is destructible, leaving detailed craters and rubble in its wake. The level of detail with the characters and environments here is striking, and some great attention is paid here with not only the majestic backdrops, but also the sheer chaos as you move through each area. This game also carries the Dodonpachi DNA with its action set pieces that literally lights everything on screen ablaze through the 5 stages. Boss and major enemies will throw some absolutely bonkers attacks in your face, and will certainly test your reaction time, while simultaneously casting an almost trance-inducing visual feast. As mentioned above, the HUD displays a wealth of information during play and can be a bit to keep up with, but it is possible. Aside from your display in the playfield, the border will have several notable bits of info such as your score, available hit points, section rankings, boss health, and even an overhead map which scrolls with you during your level progression. And those are the ones that I could think of off the top of my head, since I'm sure there's several that I'm missing. The amount of info on screen along with the action never really distracts from one another either, so for those brief moments you can process it, the amount of info provided is extensive to say the least. Each character has their own opening in-game cinematic as well as unique ending credit scenes which has a similar presentation to that of the upcoming Goange, which will build off this gameplay and graphical style. Each main and alternate fire pattern have their own distinct look, along with each super being different between the characters. Super attack animations visually feel closer to that of Dodonpachi more so than Dangun Feveron, which leans into more bright visuals and a more comedic aesthetic. It's interesting to note while these developed at the same time, each had their similarities with some honestly astounding differences between the projects. Boss characters are also varied up a good bit here with a mix of mechanical enemies and massive Yakuza Corp machinery, and the corporate majors who've also taken in the Esper, all leading up to the final encounter with Lady Gara and Alice. From the top, enemies will throw some heavy fire patterns at you, and each has several progressive phases as the game goes on. Mid and main bosses will switch up their attacks, getting more aggressive as their health depletes, and these battles can get visually intense with the amount of bullets on screen. The final phases of Lady Gara especially are some gnarly ones, and hats off to anyone who can do this encounter without getting hit. On the whole, the gameplay along with the accompanying visuals are solid, and really only has a couple instances of slowdown when the screen is going absolutely mental. With everything that's happening on screen, it's hard to even notice when it does, since any advantage to getting through those tougher patterns is absolutely welcome. The design aesthetic here is pretty tight overall, and it's gassed up on high octane with its killer animation and presentation. Sound-wise, there's also a good bit going on here with a driving soundtrack and sound effects that got that signature cave crunch. The soundtrack is hype and it's got some certified bangers in there. Masahiro Kusunoki and Tsuneki Ikeda lay down some hammers along this thrill ride, and then it accompanies the action really well. There's a few tunes in here that are really catchy and has an almost early 90s anime vibe to them, with a variety of range from raucous to more foreboding tracks like the subway stage. True to form, much like the rest of their catalog, the soundtrack cooks. Sound effects are nice and crunchy here, with every explosion having some serious bass with each boom. The effects is also pretty pronounced with every item pickup to the crumbling surroundings as you blow a hole through a parking garage rooftop, dropping more resonance with each progressively bigger blast. Characters also have a good bit of voice synth with more emphatic voice lines as you level up. Once your character is fully powered up, the voice lines nearly tip the Richter scale with their cavernous reverb. Boss characters also have voice tracks during encounters as well, and the voice audio is clean and crisp with its delivery. Cave titles tend to be heavy with their sound design and typically pay close attention to how it enhances the experience along with its massive action set pieces. From the music to the in-game audio itself, it all slaps with lioness ferocity. It all works out to be an audibly balanced experience as well, with the action never really overpowering the backing tunes or the voice work, which are all properly equalized. In closing, Esperade Sai is an awesome shoot 'em up, and the M2 Shot Triggers port is certainly a welcome addition to the Switch and PS4. The arcade release would spawn a couple of sequels, being the Escaluda games, and after playing this, I hope I can catch their reissues when they release after playing the superb original entry. The action is fast-paced as well as challenging, though has an addictive gameplay loop and overall style that drips with appeal. Its 5 stages go by quick, but it's an incredibly fun shooter and has a lot of replay value with its different endings and modes. Esperade Sai gets an 8.5 out of 10 and comes highly recommended to shoot 'em up fans as well as action game fans, since this one is a beast, and learning to tango with it is a rewarding experience, especially on the higher difficulties. The base mode itself provides a good bit to digest, and the extra modes add fun gameplay tweaks and additional characters, making it a solid deal. Being able to play it on the go is a great advantage on the Switch version, as well as being able to have it look sick on a proper monitor. Physical copies aren't too difficult to track down, and run about standard retail price for the region-free release on the Switch and PS4. If you see a copy in the wild and are a fan of shoot 'em ups, this one is a must play. If you have the means and can find a physical JAMA board, that's also a great addition to a cabinet even. Play this one however you can if you're interested, you won't be disappointed. And I thank you again if you made it this far into the video. If you found these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use this as a resource. Check back often, we'll have more reviews and commentaries coming up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.